I'm with John Silkman from Samaritans Purse on the ground in Israel. Now, the Reverend Franklin Graham has just recently been here. You were near the Gaza border for a special event. Tell us about that. What was he doing here?
Thank you, Paul. So we had Franklin Graham here to help us with the groundbreaking for an ambulance station that we had funded for constructing for Magen David Adom, the first responder service here in country nationwide, and also to dedicate two ambulances that are armored ambulances to be able to use in combat situations.
So you've just donated two ambulances. How many ambulances have you donated altogether, and how many have promised to be on the way?
So we have 14 standard ambulances on the ground already, and then we have another 8 armored ambulances that we committed to. 2 of those we dedicated at the ceremony. Another 6 are on their way. And then Franklin Graham, when he was in for this ceremony, he committed to another 20 armored ambulances to go to Magen David Adom for the needs that they have across the country. So it's 42 ambulances overall.
Did Israel lose ambulances on October the 7th?
They did. There were 14 ambulances that were destroyed by Hamas. They targeted the ambulances early in the attacks so that the wounded wouldn't be able to be treated in the areas that they ensued with the massacre. So those 14 ambulances lay destroyed, and that was our first commitment. Franklin Graham's first commitment was to provide ambulances to replace the 14 that were destroyed.
Why is it important that they are armored ambulances?
The armored ambulances are very important because they can get into areas that hostilities are still underway. Some of the limitations with the standard ambulances during the massacre of 7 October were that they couldn't get people to the ambulances in time. The ambulances had to stop short of the areas of active hostilities. So people had to load their patients, the casualties, in cars and trucks and bring them to where the ambulances were. With an armored ambulance, you can go straight into the area of active hostilities and be able to treat the patient, stabilize them, getting in the ambulance and get them to a hospital for further treatment.
That must be very expensive. Do you know how much an armored ambulance actually costs?
Oh, just around, I would say, $300,000.
Were they shipped into the country?
They were shipped into the country from Europe, yes.
One of these ambulances is in memory of American Hirsch Goldberg Polin, who was murdered by Hamas just recently. Did the Reverend Graham get to meet his family and hear about his story?
Unfortunately, he was not able to meet Hirsch Goldberg Poland's family. They were not in attendance. However, the ambulance, Magen David Adom, did bring the ambulance to their family's home so they could be able to see it and see the dedication and honoring Hirsch on the side of the ambulance door. Roy Edan's family was there. Roy Edan and Samadar Moore Edan were killed, and that was the other ambulance that was dedicated. So Franklin Graham was able to meet with Roy's parents and sister that was in attendance.
Must be very special for the family to know that there's, like a memorial of an ambulance.
I think it is. Of course, doesn't provide closure, but it helps, I think, to know that your loved one is being honored in a special way.
What's inside these ambulances?
Oh, there's all kinds of life-saving kit and materials to be able to stabilize patients, and especially with the armored ambulances. They have some level and degree of intensive care type of facilities and tools and monitors to be able to help to stabilize the patients.
And of course, the Israeli government don't actually provide ambulances for the country, do they? It's all a charity basis. So this is very, very important that Samaritan Purse was able to provide these ambulances for the nation of Israel.
That's correct. And again, David Adom serves the country, the nation, and has ties with the government, but they are a nonprofit in nature. So they do rely on donations to be able to grow and maintain the fleet of ambulances that they have.
Now, Reverend Graham took part in a ceremony laying the cornerstone for a new MDA station in Al Shalom. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, that station is interesting, and we agreed to help with constructing this ambulance station with Magen David Adom for the Eshkol Regional Council in an area. Eshkol Regional Council is one of the hardest hit during the 7 October attacks. They had 158 that were killed out of that regional council. There's only one ambulance station in Eshkol Regional Council, and that's up north. Down south, there is nothing, and this is near the Gaza border and the Egypt border, and some of the casualties, unfortunately, didn't get help in time because of the limitations of assets in the area. So we're helping again to build this ambulance station so that there is going to be ambulances in the area to be able to respond in a more rapid manner should, God forbid, some kind of attack like this happens again.
Now, Reverend Graham, he came over just after the attacks that happened on October the 7th, and this time he came over in a more positive light. So it must have felt more positive that we're coming and we're bringing something for the nation of Israel.
Yes, I think the mood has definitely changed. When he came in the first time, the country was a mild shock, or even more than mild, I would say a deeper shock. But this time, as he came in, there was a sense of, as we're providing these ambulances, that there is hope for the future. And as the Israeli citizens speak about, or the leadership in these regional councils speak about, the hope in the future is bringing more families, returning all the families to the area, bringing more families in, and the victory in this is not just victory over Hamas, it's returning back to normal in their communities and bringing more communities in.
Were you at the dedication service, and was this a moving experience?
Yes, I was at the dedication service, and it was quite moving. It's good that Israel sees that they are not alone, that there are groups out there that care for them and want to help them and want to aid in their protection and reduce their suffering.
Of course, Samaritans Purse is a Christian organization. You help anybody around the world. But this must be a really good witness and testimony of the love of Jesus Christ, providing these ambulances to the Jewish community. They must see something within that the Christian community loved the Jewish people, whereas in the past it's actually been very, very negative, the history between Christians and Jews, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long history. It's a very sordid history that between Christians and Jews over the arc of time. Being an evangelical organization we're here to provide unconditional support and unconditional love to these people on the ground and show them the love of Jesus Christ. And I will actually mention Eli Bean. He's the Director General of Magen David Adom. He talked about the basis of both organizations, Magen David Adom, which is a Jewish organization, and Samaritans Purse, which is an evangelical organization, that the link between us is the verses about love thy neighbor as thyself, which is the basis for both organizations and where we find common ground.
You also work in the West Bank. Tell us a bit about some of the work that you do in the West Bank.
So in the West Bank, we've been working very dutifully with medical clinics in the areas, mostly in the south, but even some up north as well. We've served over 1,000 patients at this point, and it's an area that's been very depressed and shocked by not only the situation, but the economy is tanking there. And so there's desperation in those areas, and we want to help and reach out to the people of the West Bank that are suffering.
Now, you work with Samaritans Purse. Why did you want to come to Israel to minister to the people here?
Really, it goes back to providing that unconditional support and helping in Jesus' name. We're not asking for anything in return. All we want to do is be able to help those that are suffering and to reduce that suffering and save lives in Jesus' name.
When did you come to the Holy Land?
11 October is when we arrived at the outset of the conflict.
Wow, so you've been here all this wartime.
Yeah, pretty much the entire time we've been here, just developing our different networks and helping in as many ways as we can to build bridges between groups and also restore communities to where they need to be, helping with the return of communities to the Gaza envelope in the south. And then we're ministering where we can to communities that still haven't been able to return to their homes in the north.
What do your family feel about you being here at this particular time?
Well, they're very supportive. They actually came over in May and are with me as well. And my wife, Holly, is the project manager for the equine therapy center that we're constructing down in the south as well.
Well, we've had conflict for generations, particularly in the last year. What is your hope for the future of the Holy Land?
So I would say my hope for the future of the Holy Land is that they can be at peace with their neighbors. They are surrounded by 7 fronts where nefarious groups would want to do them harm. And there's been hope with relationships between Israel and Saudi Arabia in the Abrahamic Accords. My hope would be that type of relationship, those type of positive bridge building relationships would continue and their enemies would fade away.
What's your website for people who'd like to know more about Samaritan's Purse, perhaps read some articles on there, or even want to give to help towards an ambulance?
So you can definitely learn more about what we're doing at SamaritansPurse.org, O-R-G. And there are places where you can go and take a look and see what we're doing and learn more about how we're helping in Israel.
Well, John, thank you very much for sharing today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.